Hello, everybody, and welcome to the April 26, 2022 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. We have a pretty light agenda today, but I see a lot of folks here, so let's see if anybody else has any topics. In terms of announcements, only thing that I have is that the 124 release, I think, is still expected to come out next Tuesday. So be sure to look for that. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to announce or questions about release?
I guess is that when they will open up the repositories again, like FODM, the Kubernetes main?
I'm not sure exactly. That usually depends on the release team. I know that in the past they've done kind of a staged opening where they like allow bug fix PRs that were kind of blocked to go in, and then waited a little bit for feature or enhancement PRs to come in. I will try and find that out for next week. So what the plan is for the next for opening up into master again, or main. I think that they're also trying to switch over to main, or rename the master branch to main.
Okay, got it.
So yeah, I'll try and have more information next week. I haven't heard anything either way about if they're just going when they're going to open it, or if they're going to do a stage rollout. Yeah, because I think we're waiting for that to check in the kubeproxy caching fixes that you have, right, David, and then get those merged into the 124 branch for a 124.1 release.
Yeah, exactly. That would be great.
Okay, yeah, I'll try and get more information for that by next week, or sooner. I can post it in Slack as soon as I get it. Okay, does anybody else have any questions? Okay, again, I'll open it up. We'll give a space if there's any new contributors here that want to either introduce themselves, ask some questions, or if anybody would like to share what they're working on, feel free to do so now. You can just raise your hand or unmute and talk. I don't see too many new people on the call. But... okay, I guess we can go into the agenda then. David, if you want, you can go first. We can do I can do a demo later.
Yeah, so there's a server 2022 KB that was released. So I'm just pasting it in chat right now. The chat opens. So on April 25th, the KB was released. I think originally it was planned to go out last Tuesday, actually, so a week ago, but was delayed for 1 week, unfortunately, due to some approval that was needed. And yeah, so this contains several networking fixes. So if you are using Server 2022, I would highly recommend to get this patch.
Okay, yeah, so there's more information in the link, and these will be these will be distributed with the cumulative rollup in a couple of weeks too. So, yep, take a look at that. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to discuss as part of the agenda? If not, I can demo some of the prototype work that Danny's been working on for the host process containers, which I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, but now I think it'd be a good time to demo again and get some more feedback. Okay, I will start with that. Let me share my whole screen and let me know if I need to zoom in. If anybody can't see, give me a second to share the whole screen. All right, can folks see this? I can zoom in a little bit here. So Danny, you're on the call too. If you have anything you want me to demo with the new behaviors, let me know. But so as I mentioned before, like the way that we had to set up the volumes for host process containers was a little bit different than how they work for Linux privileged containers. And this has caused some issues, especially around being able to use things like the in-cluster config functionality of the Kubernetes API client to automatically fetch the secrets for authentication. So here I have two clusters set up that are both running Windows Server 2022 and just have a simple container running in those clusters. And one is running with just the 1.6.2 release of Container D with the included HCS shim, and another one is a shim from a private branch or a public branch that Danny's been working out of with some changes to how we do volume mounts to demo the updates and the behaviors there. So I also have, because we are changing the behaviors on how the volumes get mounted and what's kind of virtualized and what's not, I do have some RDP sessions into the host nodes for each of these two scenarios too. So here's the old behavior. I just called the old host process container. Here we'll see there's just a single pod running in the default namespace. It's got everything else running, but I'll exec into that. And this is just a container that's running ping in a loop to keep it open. So that's helping. So here we see that you get placed right into a directory that's C:C and then the container ID. And under here, we have under here, we have this var. I'll just do a tree on that. So this container doesn't have any extra volume mounts defined, but it does have the service account token. And so in order to get access to the service account token that's part of this volume mount, you need to know the ID of the container to be able to find it. Now we do have, an environment variable called this container sandbox mount point that points to this directory. So you can do like something strange is happening, but you can do like so you can reference your volumes from this like rooted from this container sandbox mount point. And so that's the main reason why in cluster config doesn't work, is it expects this this volume to be mounted in and just /var run secrets, which on Windows gets translated to C:var run secrets service account token. And so this should be, which machine is this? This is the old host process container machine too. So if we do we can do a dir on that C:, directory, and we can see a whole bunch of different, let me see if I can zoom in here. Yeah, so all of the different containers that are running on the system, these are just like kubeproxy, the CNI containers and everything. These are all accessible to any of the host process containers. So if you wanted to, you could jump up a directory and grab the secrets from a different container or any of the data that's mounted in. This is not really ideal, but since you're running as the host, you can do anything you want with on the host. So it was not really anything we can do to lock that down. The new behavior, though, is that there is some file system isolation for how host process containers work. Let me show that in a new container. So the host view of this isn't that interesting. All of the volumes are just set up here, and anything can access them. But with the new behavior, I can demo that too. So this is running a private shim. We'll do. You can see what machine it's running on. So here you'll see that you get, when you exec into this host process container, you start off as just, you get put in the root, just C:, or whatever I think whatever your working directory is defined as. And this mirrors the behavior of regular Windows Server containers as well. You'll also notice that if we do a, so we do still have a merged file system view. So many of these folders are coming in from the host, like C:(K), C:, program files, all of this. But what's different now is that we have we're able to look at we're able to mount the volumes in the correct place. So one of the reasons why we have the existing behavior is because a lot of times volumes like, the secrets one get mounted at a static path. In this case, it's just var run secrets. And before we didn't really have any file system isolation. So that would mean that if there's multiple containers that are all trying to mount a volume at var run secrets, would be kind of, there would be collisions with which secrets you have now. Now there is some degree of file system isolation, so we are able to mount those volumes at well-known paths to get it to. And actually, in this case, just using in cluster config works because the volume is where it's expected. Because of the old behavior, we did have a number of there were workarounds in order to get in order to authenticate with the cluster, and that usually involves using this relative path to find the secrets. We did preserve that behavior, so now we're actually mounting any volume mounts in two spots. One where they're requested to be mounted just off of the root directory or C:, and the other one is they still get mounted under. We are still setting this container's sandbox mount points. Oh, actually, that's another update that I'll get into too. But you can just navigate to C:(C). I guess, did you change that behavior, Danny?
Yeah, the default is CHPC now.
Okay. I thought that we were keeping the volume mounts where they were in the C:(C), whatever.
No, they'll be mounted under CHPC in kind of the same relative path now.
Okay. So can you see all of the containers? The volume mounts. Oh, I guess never mind. You can't see the volume mounts for all the containers because that's exactly what we're doing here. So first I'll show what this looks like on the host machine. Right. What's the whatever. So this is the new cluster config, and what's interesting here is things like the volume mount. Yeah, I was just. I think that this is just this is an artifact of this being a prototype, but you'll notice here that we still have the path up into where the service account volume is mounted still exists on the host, but the contents of that folder don't exist too. So this is that file system virtualization that we were talking about too. So this allows us to schedule many pods and that use static paths in their volume mounts and not have collisions with any of that too. Another difference is that, yeah, as Danny mentioned, we're creating the contents of that come in with the container. All of that previously that used to get placed in C:C and then a container ID. So if during your container build you added any files or scripts to that, they would be accessible in that C:C whatever, or off of that container sandbox mount point directory. Now what we're doing is each container mounts its contents to that C:, HPC directory. So this container right here is the nano server based container. So it does have everything based off of nano server, or like everything that's in the nano server image still shows up in here. We are prototyping and have some successful prototypes of using a slim image or a scratch image with host process containers that doesn't have any of the contents from nano server or server core that we could probably demo in one of the upcoming sessions too. But this container image doesn't have anything there, so it's not that interesting. You'll notice that on the host to this that HPC doesn't. That HPC does exist, but it's, oh, interesting. So you want to explain what's going on there, Danny?
Do they actually have contents in them? I think it's just it's probably an artifact of the way that
they don't have any files.
Yeah, what we're doing here is there's a driver in Windows that can handle kind of exactly what Linux bind mounts are, but you have to have everything besides the last bit of the path exist. So you can't just say like bind, C path to C other path, or C, path to other path. So path to other has to exist for the last bit of the path. So there's probably a way to work around this that we were trying out, but for the time being, that's the artifact that you're seeing here. So the actual bind mount point won't show up on the host, it'll only show up in the container, but everything prior to the last portion of the path exists.
Yeah, so that's so I think this works more or less how we were hoping it would work. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen now and turn on the camera so we can have a quick discussion about this. Let's see. I'll bring up the agenda again. So one of the things that we wanted to discuss with the community is currently, as Danny just mentioned, there is there's some Windows APIs to do these bind mounts. Currently, these Windows APIs are they're not available in Windows Server 2019. So one of the things that we're trying to decide, and we'd like to open up a discussion here or wherever, and this will probably be discussed more in the KEP too, is what do we want to do about that? Do we want to have the nice behavior only available in Windows Server 2019 and have the old behavior in Windows Server, or only have the nice behavior available in Windows Server 2022 and have the shim be able to detect which operating system it's running on and do the nice behavior for Windows Server 2022 and the not nice behavior for Windows Server 2019? Or I guess, yeah, that's the big question. I don't really like that behavior, because it does mean that you may potentially need either. What I think is going to end up happening is people are going to build their host process containers to target either a specific OS like Windows Server 2019 or Windows Server 2022 because of that, or they're only going to implement the Windows Server 2019 behaviors to get it for maximum compatibility. And then the new functionality is not really going to get used. So yeah, I guess let's open it up for some discussion, see what people think. What are your thoughts? Danny, James, Claudio, anybody who's played with host process containers? I'm curious. It's a little bit unfortunate because I think like this behavior is exactly what we wanted for like when we envisioned host process containers, but the fact that it's not really feasible at this point to implement in Windows Server 2019 is kind of a big sore spot.
I think moving forward, it would be a lot better, especially when it comes to user experience. But it does put a user in a difficult spot in making sure that when the user will deploy host process containers, it will have to make sure that it's going to spawn on 2019 or 2022. That's going to be difficult to manage.
Yeah, I'm also curious where, like, what everybody's thoughts and adoption of Windows Server 2022 is, because if there's kind of critical mass in moving to Windows Server 2022, that's might not be that big of an issue. But I know like AKS currently only supports Windows Server 2019. I'm guessing a lot of other big cloud providers or infrastructure providers are on the same boat with that too. Like if, yeah, I'd be less concerned about not having Windows Server 20, about not having this work in Windows Server 2019 if a lot more, if everybody was using Windows Server 2022, but I don't see that as the case.
At VMware, our Windows offering is relatively new. Now when I talked to folks like, who was the last person I talked about this? Was it Jamie? Jamie, I think, was saying, like Windows on Kubernetes is relatively new when you think about companies adopting it. And so I guess the bigger question is like, is Windows on Kubernetes, like, are more people going to be adopting it now than before? And if so, host process is increasingly relevant, or is it like everybody's already running it and they don't want to tear down their old 2019 servers? Is that the question? Like, that's kind of the question that I have. For us, I think 2022 is probably a good thing because we just released our VMware on Windows Kubernetes product recently. So for Tanzu, I mean, probably most of our customers will probably want to do 2022, I think. I don't know.
I do have a question. In the new implementation, do you still have the environment variable, the pod sandbox container path thingy? I can never remember the full name.
Yeah, yes, we do. And that always points to just that C:\HPC that may be configurable based on some input that gets passed to the shim. But for now, that's just what we decided, and for the prototypes to do this. But so that is still available. So if you still want to look for the volume mounts or your payload content under C:\HPC or under the, like, from that container sandbox mount point environment variable, that's still possible.
Mm-hmm.
Other
Yeah,
things that I would...
That was what I was curious about, because if we are going to go forward with the new implementation and people had, pods with the old implementation, that they will still work with the new implementation. But if that environment variable is set to the HPC path, then I think it should work as before. So that's good.
Yeah, existing containers that were built around the old behavior should continue to work with the new behavior on Windows Server 2022. But if there's new host process containers that just assume in cluster config works for their in their payload, those likely will not work on Windows Server 2019. So the other kind of just thing is, like, I think figuring out this volume of behavior is the reason why we're still haven't tried to pursue, like, one of the main reasons why we still haven't tried to pursue, you know, GA status for the feature, why we kept it in beta for 124. So there's, I mean, I was really hoping that we could, like, yeah, I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say this, but I was really hoping that we could have the same experience for Windows Server 2019 and Windows Server 2022 for the feature. If the community and everybody's saying, let's just pursue the new nice behavior, we could say, you know, this feature is really only supported on Windows Server 2022. It works, but there's caveats in Windows Server 2019. So that's another option.
I like that. Yeah, I vote for that.
Yeah, and we're definitely not going to make a final decision here. I'm just starting some conversations that are probably going to happen, if especially if we go and update the CAP to say, you know, in cluster config works, here's how it works too. So if anybody else has, you know, thoughts, feel free to raise it in meeting in Slack or anytime.
Thanks for demoing this, Mark. This is great.
Yeah, no
I
problem.
mean, it's good that we understand this now, you know.
Mm-hmm. There's still a chance that we can get the APIs needed to get this to work backported to Windows Server 2019, but I'm not going to be too hopeful for that. Yeah, there's a chance, but I don't think it's actually, like, it's a pretty slim chance too. So, all right, that's the top of the hour. If anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out in Slack or anything. If not, I think I'm going to end the meeting now and we can go into pairing. And folks, stick around.
Let's see.